Today we dive into real-life tales of betrayal, lies, and murder. In this episode, we take you to Fairfax, Virginia, back in March 2017, where a case of forbidden love and hidden family secrets led to a deadly outcome. This is the story of a woman who became caught up in a secret affair with her father-in-law, a dangerous relationship that ultimately cost her life. Abigail Baylor, a 29-year-old graphic designer from Fairfax, Virginia, made a name for herself working from home. She focused on designing campaign materials for nonprofit organizations, particularly those supporting causes in developing countries. Abigail's creativity and kindness were well known throughout her community. She frequently helped out at community events and took part in local cleanup efforts. Her friends saw her as kind, giving, and always ready to offer support. They also mentioned that she had a more reserved side and sometimes acted on impulse when she felt cornered. Despite her career achievements, Abigail was secretly unhappy in her marriage. She was married to 31-year-old Travis Baylor, a government contractor, and due to financial difficulties that caused them to lose their home, they had moved in with Travis' father, Rodney Baylor. What was meant to be a short-term arrangement ended up putting significant pressure on their relationship. In the weeks before her death, Abigail had become more unsettled. Her marriage to Travis was strained, and they argued almost every day about finances and what lay ahead. On top of that, she had secretly started an affair with her father-in-law, Rodney Baylor, a 66-year-old retired Army colonel. The affair began as a distraction from her problems at home. However, as time passed, Abigail became increasingly torn and eager to escape the unhealthy situation. On top of that, she was also dealing with mounting stress at work. Abigail was focused on securing a significant new client, an international relief organization, and had been putting in long hours to meet tight deadlines. Friends observed that she appeared more stressed than usual, but Abigail preferred to keep her personal life to herself. She had a reputation for staying strong, even during tough times. Just days before her planned departure, Abigail was found murdered, her vibrant life filled with potential and creativity abruptly ended. On the morning of March 27, 2017, her husband, Travis Baylor, discovered her body in the living room of his father's home in Fairfax, Virginia. At around 6:30 a.m., Travis returned from his early morning jog at Burke Lake Park, a routine he'd maintained for the past year. Upon entering the house, he was struck by the sight of the living room in chaos. Furniture lay overturned, and framed photos of the couple were strewn across the floor. Travis later told the police that he initially thought they had been robbed. However, as he stepped closer to the center of the room, he made a chilling discovery. Abigail lay motionless on the floor, her body twisted and bruised, a dark scarf tightly wrapped around her neck. It was evident that she had been strangled. The horrific sight left him in shock, and he quickly grabbed his phone to call 911. His voice trembled during the call, filled with distress, as he repeatedly said, "My wife's dead." "Someone killed my wife," he told the operator. Within minutes, paramedics and Fairfax County Police arrived at the scene. First responders confirmed Abigail was deceased, and based on the state of her body, they estimated she had been murdered the night before, between 10 p.m. and midnight. In a state of shock, Travis was asked to step outside while investigators started examining the scene. Neighbors reported hearing nothing unusual the night before. The couple's home, situated in a quiet, upper-middle-class neighborhood, was not the type of place where violent crimes were anticipated. The Baylors lived in a community where residents felt safe leaving their doors unlocked, so the news of a murder sent shockwaves through the entire block. While Travis stood outside the home, pacing and clearly distressed, police questioned him about his whereabouts the night before. He explained that after dinner, he and Abigail had a minor argument about finances, and she had gone to bed early. He spent the evening on his computer, preparing for a work presentation, and went to bed later without checking on her. When he woke up for his morning run, he assumed Abigail was still asleep. By mid-morning, the Baylor home was surrounded by yellow crime scene tape. Neighbors gathered on the street, observing as police collected evidence. The discovery of Abigail's body marked the start of an investigation that would soon reveal unsettling secrets within the Baylor family. Fairfax County police officers arrived at the Baylor home shortly after 8 a.m. on March 27, 2017. The neighborhood was quiet, with a few early morning commuters heading to work, unaware of the tragedy just a few doors down. Lead investigators, Detective John Ellis, 45, and Detective Maria Singh, 38, were assigned to the case. Ellis was known for his no-nonsense approach and had handled high-profile murder cases before, while Singh, a rising star in the department, earned praise for her keen attention to detail. Upon entering the living room, they were met with chaos. The couch was overturned. A glass coffee table lay shattered, and family photos that once adorned the walls were scattered across the floor. It was evident that a violent struggle had taken place. Abigail Baylor's body lay near the coffee table, her legs twisted beneath her, with bruises on her arms suggesting she had fought to defend herself. The scarf around her neck was tightly wrapped, and her face displayed signs of asphyxiation. Her lips were blue, and her eyes were wide open. Ellis and Singh swiftly secured the area, identifying potential evidence and photographing the scene. They observed several small bloodstains on the carpet, likely from cuts sustained during the struggle. Singh noticed a broken vase near Abigail's hand, which they suspected she might have used to fend off her attacker. The detectives also observed that there were no signs of forced entry, raising questions about whether Abigail knew her killer. They employed various methods to thoroughly process the crime scene. Forensic technicians dusted the room for fingerprints, collected hair and fiber samples from the carpet, and meticulously examined the scarf used to strangle Abigail, hoping it might contain traces of the killer's DNA. Meanwhile, Ellis and Singh reviewed surveillance footage from nearby homes to look for any suspicious activity in the area. As the investigation unfolded, police theorized that Abigail's murder was a crime of passion. The level of violence indicated it was personal rather than a random robbery. Detective Ellis told reporters that the crime was intimate and brutal, prompting them to focus on individuals close to Abigail, especially her husband, Travis Baylor, and his father, Renya Baylor. The crime scene was meticulously processed, with detectives working into the afternoon. By the end of the day, they had gathered over a dozen pieces of evidence, but many questions lingered. What had sparked such a violent confrontation in this otherwise quiet home? At 31, Travis Baylor was the first person investigators focused on. As Abigail's husband and a charismatic government contractor, Travis often boasted about his connections in the community. He seemed to have it all: a good job, a nice car, and a respectable reputation. However, beneath that polished exterior, his life was far from perfect. Travis had been having an affair with a younger woman, Brielle Perez, for over a year. His marriage was deteriorating, and financial troubles were escalating after he and Abigail lost their home and had to move in with his father, Rodney. On the morning of Abigail's murder, Travis told police he had been out jogging, a routine he insisted he regularly maintained. He seemed composed while speaking with detectives but became visibly uncomfortable when asked about his relationship with Abigail. He acknowledged that they had been arguing lately but minimized their issues, describing them as typical marital problems. However, when Detective John Ellis pressed him about his mistress, Travis's calm demeanor began to falter. He grew defensive, insisting that his affair had no connection to Abigail's death. Although he cooperated with the detectives, Travis was evasive when questioned about his movements that morning. His alibi was weak, lacking solid evidence to support his claim of having gone for a run. Detectives found it suspicious that Travis hadn't noticed anything unusual upon returning home. He claimed the house was in its usual state and only realized something was wrong when the police began investigating Abigail's murder. His financial troubles were worsening, and the affair with Brielle added further strain to his already troubled marriage, prompting detectives to consider whether he had a motive. It was evident that Travis had a lot to lose if his marriage continued to deteriorate. Investigators speculated whether he might have reached a breaking point, resulting in a violent confrontation with Abigail. As detectives pressed on with their questioning, they noted several inconsistencies in his statements. His story continued to shift, and despite his insistence on innocence, the detectives remained skeptical. They couldn't ignore the reality of his crumbling marriage, dire financial situation, and the very public nature of his affair with Brielle. By the end of the first round of questioning, Travis had become a primary suspect. The police needed more evidence, but the image they were forming of Travis painted him as a desperate man, possibly capable of anything to escape his circumstances. Brielle Perez, 22, was the second person they questioned. She was Travis's mistress, and their relationship was well known. Brielle worked as a bartender at a local Hooters while pursuing her acting career, hoping for her big break. With a fiery personality and unapologetic attitude, she openly flaunted her relationship with Travis, often sharing suggestive photos of them on social media. Friends described her as confident and outgoing, though some viewed her as reckless and prone to jealousy. Brielle had not hidden her disdain for Abigail. Text messages recovered from Abigail's phone revealed several hostile messages from Brielle on social media, where she mocked Abigail, calling her fat and ugly, accusing her of eating dogs and cats, and taunting her about the affair. Investigators believed Brielle had ample motivation to want Abigail out of the picture. Abigail's death would free Travis to be with Brielle, and she had become increasingly frustrated with his hesitation to leave his wife. When detectives questioned Brielle on March 28, 2017, she was surprisingly cooperative. She appeared calm, even smug, as she answered their questions. Brielle denied any involvement in Abigail's death and claimed she hadn't seen Travis in the hours leading up to the murder. She stated she was working a shift at Hooters during that time, and several co-workers confirmed her presence at the restaurant. However, her alibi wasn't foolproof. While she may have been at work for part of the day, investigators couldn't account for Brielle's whereabouts during the critical window when Abigail was murdered. When detectives pressed her about the hostile messages she had sent, Brielle dismissed them as mere venting. "I'm just a girl being a girl," she told them, displaying little remorse for her actions. As they delved deeper, police became increasingly focused on Brielle's relationship with Travis. They questioned whether she had pressured him to choose between her and Abigail, and if her jealousy might have driven her to take drastic action. Despite this, Brielle steadfastly denied any involvement, insisting she had nothing to gain from Abigail's death. She argued that she didn't need to kill Abigail to be with Travis, claiming he had been distancing himself from his wife for months. Despite her confident demeanor, detectives remained skeptical. Brielle's fiery temper, overt hostility toward Abigail, and potential motive all positioned her as a prime suspect in the investigation. However, without stronger evidence, police could only keep Brielle on their radar while they searched for more clues. On the morning of March 30, 2017, Fairfax police made a significant breakthrough in the case. It was a cool, overcast day, with temperatures around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, typical for early spring in Virginia. Investigators returned to the Baylor home to search for any overlooked clues. While examining Abigail's home office, they discovered a hidden folder at the bottom of a desk drawer. Inside was a handwritten letter from Abigail, dated just days before her murder. The letter revealed shocking information. Abigail had written about both her husband's affair with Brielle Perez and her own shocking secret sexual relationship with her father-in-law, Rodney Baylor. In the letter, she described how she was planning to leave her husband, end the affair with Rodney, and start fresh in California, where her sister lived. Abigail appeared determined to escape the web of betrayal that had engulfed her. Detectives recognized that this new evidence changed everything. Her plan to expose the affairs provided a motive not just for Brielle and Travis, but also for Rodney. The discovery of the letter was a game-changer, indicating a potential confrontation between Abigail and Rodney that could have led to her death. It also contained insights into Abigail's emotional state in the days leading up to her murder. She expressed feelings of being trapped and conflicted, yet also conveyed a sense of hope that she could turn her life around. The detectives quickly shifted their focus to Rodney. The timing of Abigail's planned escape and her decision to end their affair could have provoked a violent reaction. Detective Martin and her team utilized the letter to construct a clearer timeline of the events leading up to the murder. They enlisted forensic handwriting experts to confirm that the letter was genuinely written by Abigail. With this new evidence in hand, police re-examined the crime scene, paying closer attention to areas where Rodney might have left fingerprints or other traces. The letter marked a crucial turning point, allowing investigators to redirect their focus toward him. Not only did it shed light on Abigail's final days, but it also revealed the fragile dynamics of the complicated relationships within the Baylor household. With this new information, detectives shifted their attention to Rodney as the primary suspect. The discovery of Abigail's letter instilled a renewed urgency in the investigation, propelling them to uncover the truth behind her tragic death. The police were resolute in their search for solid evidence linking Rodney to the murder. They started monitoring his activities in the days leading up to Abigail's death. Rodney Baylor, 66, was Abigail's father-in-law and a well-respected member of the Fairfax community. A retired colonel from the U.S. Army, He enjoyed a quiet and comfortable life following his military service, but his seemingly stable existence was now under scrutiny. The detectives discovered that the affair between Rodney and Abigail had been going on for nearly a year, revealing a complex web of deceit and betrayal within the Baylor family. Friends and acquaintances described Rodney as disciplined and sharp-witted, but they had no idea of the dark secrets he was hiding. This revelation not only complicated the investigation but also raised questions about the true nature of his relationship with Abigail and whether it could have led to a deadly confrontation. As investigators delved deeper, they uncovered more details about Rodney's personality. His authoritative presence often masked an underlying sense of entitlement. This behavior, combined with his relationship with Abigail and the threat of being exposed, painted a troubling picture that investigators couldn't ignore. Abigail and Travis had to move into Rodney's house because of their financial struggles. During this time, Rodney, who was in great shape for his age, became more than just a father figure to Abigail. He became her lover. Their relationship had grown into a secret and forbidden connection, marked by deep emotional and physical involvement. On March 31, 2017, detectives brought Rodney in for questioning. Detective Maria Singh, the lead investigator, aimed to explore his motivations more thoroughly. Rodney maintained a calm and cooperative demeanor, responding to questions with the precision and politeness typical of a retired colonel. However, subtle cracks in his composure emerged. He appeared overly eager to downplay the affair, referring to it as a minor misunderstanding and describing it as a momentary lapse in judgment. When police confronted Rodney about Abigail's decision to end their relationship, as outlined in the letter they discovered, his expression turned tense. He flatly denied any knowledge of the letter or her intentions to leave both him and Travis. The detectives observed a noticeable tension in Rodney's voice whenever they brought up Abigail. He was a man accustomed to being in control, and the prospect of losing her both emotionally and physically could have pushed him to a breaking point. When pressed about his whereabouts on the day of her murder, Rodney stated he had been out running errands before attending a local veterans event. However, his alibi was weak and difficult to verify. As the interrogation went on, Rodney grew increasingly defensive, particularly when detectives suggested that Abigail might have revealed their affair to his son, Travis. While he maintained a composed demeanor, it was evident that the thought of losing everything: his family's respect, his reputation, and Abigail had profoundly impacted him. With Rodney emerging as the prime suspect, police ramped up their efforts to gather solid evidence connecting him to Abigail's murder. The investigation was still ongoing, but Rodney's calm facade began to break. On April 2, 2017, the detectives received a significant breakthrough. After weeks of meticulously reviewing evidence, they discovered a vital detail in the forensic report: a partial fingerprint on the scarf used to strangle Abigail. The print belonged to none other than Rodney Baylor, Abigail's father-in-law and lover. This finding reinforced the detectives' growing suspicions regarding Rodney's involvement in the murder. With the fingerprint as concrete evidence, they were increasingly convinced that Rodney had been in close proximity to the scarf used to strangle Abigail. Combined with the troubling revelations from Abigail's letter, the police began to establish a clear motive. Abigail intended to end her affair with Rodney and expose the truth about his relationship with her, as well as Travis's infidelity. For Rodney, a man who thrived on control, the thought of losing both his lover and his reputation could have pushed him to commit murder. At 9 a.m. on April 3, 2017, police arrived at Rodney's Fairfax home to make the arrest. He didn't resist. When the officers entered, they found him in his study, casually reading a newspaper, a cup of black coffee resting on his desk. The former Army colonel kept his demeanor calm as detectives placed handcuffs on him, but his expression revealed a subtle shift. It was clear he had been expecting this moment. It was as if he understood this moment was unavoidable. At the police station, Rodney chose to remain mostly silent. When pressed about the charges, he calmly replied, "I did what I had to do." His chilling admission reverberated through the community, where he had held a position of great respect for years. The arrest sent shockwaves through Abigail's family, leaving her husband, Travis, heartbroken. Not only had Travis lost his wife, but he also faced the painful reality of his father's betrayal. Although his marriage had been on shaky ground, he had never imagined that his own father was involved with Abigail. The shocking revelation hit him hard, as he grappled with the loss of both his wife and father within just a few days. Friends and neighbors were equally shocked. Rodney had always been seen as an upstanding member of the community, and those who knew him struggled to reconcile the respected figure they admired with the man accused of murdering his own daughter-in-law. The contrast left many questioning how such darkness could exist beneath a seemingly polished exterior. Abigail's death had already left her loved ones reeling, but Rodney's arrest transformed the case into a chilling tale of familial betrayal. What initially appeared to be a straightforward murder investigation had unearthed shocking secrets that no one could have anticipated. The trial of Rodney Baylor commenced in late November 2017, drawing significant attention as the community grappled with the fallout from the revelations surrounding his actions. The courtroom buzzed with tension as local media, including the Washington Post, scrutinized every detail of the case. Rodney, once a highly regarded retired colonel, entered wearing a tailored suit, his hair impeccably styled. Despite the gravity of the situation, he maintained a composed demeanor throughout the proceedings, suggesting he had a network of influential supporters backing him. However, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation as the prosecution prepared to present their case against him. Rodney's trial featured a parade of longtime friends, many of whom were high-ranking military officers, testifying on his behalf. They portrayed him as a man of integrity and valor, emphasizing his dedication to his country and community. Their heartfelt testimonials seemed to resonate with the jury, casting a shadow over the compelling evidence presented by the prosecution. Despite the gravity of the charges, these character witnesses created a narrative that complicated the straightforward case against him. His defense attorney, Bentley Milford Hobart, a seasoned lawyer renowned for his work with military personnel, argued that Rodney had been overwhelmed by emotional turmoil stemming from the complicated family dynamics. At 62, Hobart was sharp and self-assured, with a reputation for securing reduced sentences for his clients. He contended that Rodney's actions were impulsive, asserting that the murder was not premeditated but rather a tragic result of heightened emotions in a moment of passion. According to the defense, Rodney felt cornered and betrayed by Abigail's intent to reveal their affair, which ignited his violent outburst. They highlighted Rodney's lifetime of commendable actions, emphasizing his military service and deep-rooted connections within the community. In contrast, prosecutor Dana Hartley, 38, argued passionately for a severe sentence, presenting a compelling case that underscored the brutality of the crime and the emotional toll it took on Abigail's family. She was resolute in her pursuit of justice, emphasizing the need to hold Rodney accountable for his actions. Hartley meticulously laid out the forensic evidence, highlighting the fingerprint found on the scarf and the damning content of Abigail's letter. She stressed that Rodney's esteemed status in the community should not exempt him from facing the severe repercussions of his crime. No matter what he's done in his past, this was cold-blooded murder, she declared passionately during her closing argument. The trial proved to be an emotional ordeal for Abigail's family. Her parents, Thomas and June Howard, occupied the front row each day, absorbing every testimony and piece of evidence presented. Meanwhile, Travis Baylor, Abigail's husband, maintained a stoic facade, but the weight of grief and betrayal was evident in his eyes, knowing that his own father was responsible for his wife's murder. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the tragic realities of their family's betrayal unfolded before them. Ultimately, the jury convicted Rodney of second-degree murder. Yet, taking into account his military service and the testimonies from his influential supporters, the judge handed down a surprisingly lenient sentence of only 12 years in prison. For Abigail's family, this outcome felt like a profound injustice, a painful reminder of the betrayal and loss they had endured. That's not just as Abigail's mother remarked after the sentencing. Many in the community echoed her sentiment, believing that Rodney's connections had shielded him from facing a more severe punishment. Following the conclusion of Rodney Baylor's trial, the lives of everyone involved took dramatic turns. Travis struggled to navigate his grief, grappling with the dual betrayal of losing his wife and discovering his father's role in her murder. He sought therapy to cope with the overwhelming emotions, attempting to rebuild his life while distancing himself from the shadows of his family's dark past. Meanwhile, Brielle, who had previously been in the spotlight for her relationship with Travis, faded from public view. The scrutiny of her affair and the murder investigation took a toll on her aspirations of becoming an actress, leading her to reevaluate her choices and seek a quieter life away from the chaos. Rodney, now serving his sentence, faced a complex reality behind bars. Once a respected military figure, He struggled with the weight of his actions and the betrayal of those he had once held dear. In the years to come, the impact of Abigail's tragic death rippled through the community, leaving scars that would never fully heal. Rodney, sentenced to 12 years in prison, was transferred to the Federal Correctional Institution in Petersburg, Virginia. The days of military respect and community admiration were now replaced with the harsh realities of prison life. Rodney struggled to adjust, facing hostility from other inmates who viewed him as a high-profile convict. His once commanding presence faded as he navigated a world where he no longer held power. He found himself isolated, unable to forge connections with other inmates who resented his past. The carefully curated image he had maintained for decades was shattered, and he was forced to confront the consequences of his actions without the protective shield of his previous status. As months passed, Rodney's demeanor shifted. He became more withdrawn, haunted by the memories of Abigail and the betrayal that had led to his imprisonment. He began attending counseling sessions offered within the prison, attempting to come to terms with the reality of his situation and the choices that had irrevocably altered his life. Despite the challenges, he held on to hope for a future outside prison walls, where he could rebuild his life and perhaps regain some semblance of respect. However, the scars of his actions would linger, and the impact of his choices would continue to resonate within his family and the community long after his release. His relationships and backing from military acquaintances faded, and he started to feel the weight of his actions every day. The former colonel, once held in high regard, was now a figure of betrayal and controversy. Meanwhile, Brielle Perez, Travis's lover, was grappling with her own repercussions. Following Rodney's arrest, Brielle's role in the scandal came to light. Working as a bartender at Hooters in Fairfax, she found it increasingly difficult to keep her job as her reputation plummeted. She faced relentless harassment from both the media and the public, who viewed her as a central figure in the unfolding drama. To escape the unwanted attention, Brielle relocated to a small town in North Carolina, where she found a job as a waitress. She aimed to start fresh and rebuild her life away from the media frenzy. Meanwhile, Travis Baylor, Abigail's husband, grappled with the fallout from the trial and the intense public scrutiny that came with it. Travis's business connections took a hit due to the scandal, and his once successful career in government contracting was severely affected. To escape the turmoil, he moved out of the family home and sought to distance himself from the chaos that had engulfed his life. In search of a fresh start, he relocated to Richmond, Virginia, where he took on a lower-profile job, hoping to regain a sense of normalcy. The emotional burden of losing both his wife and father weighed heavily on Travis, leaving him to wrestle with grief and guilt. He made an effort to stay out of the public eye, steering clear of media attention and minimizing his appearances. Meanwhile, the Fairfax community continued to navigate the aftermath of the scandal, with the shocking events leaving a profound and lasting mark on the local social landscape.